Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. We're so happy to have all of you here for this great event. Tonight, we're here to share Will's story and have a great conversation on our work throughout New Bedford. During our conversation section, the Q&A section of tonight's event, we would really love to hear your thoughts and ideas on future projects. If there's any historic buildings that you noticed that you think should be on Will's radar, let us know. Share your creativity with us and help shape your community. I have a few ground rules I would like to share with you. So first, please stay muted. You should already be muted when you come on in. You're welcome to turn your video on, but just stay muted until the Q&A section. And during the Q&A section, please be mindful of time. We want to be respectful and make sure we hear from everyone. So if you have one or two questions to start off with, that would be great. And then if questions start slowing down, you're more than welcome to ask some more. We have a great group of speakers this evening. My name is Teresa Wallander. I'm the development coordinator for Whale and your moderator. And we also have two other staff members here, Terry Bernert, executive director for Whale, Rachel Allison, historic projects manager for Whale, and then two awesome board members. We have Lee Blake, who is also the president of the New Bedford Historical Society, and Ben Jones, who works for UMass Dartmouth. So welcome everyone. And first up, we are going to hear from Lee. So welcome, Lee.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to hear a little bit about what Whale does and think about ways that we can work with you. My role, first of all, is to give you a little history of Whale, but I just want to give you a couple of minutes, well, maybe 1 minute only. I am the president of the New Bedford Historical Society, and the New Bedford Historical Society is just 25 years old. This year, actually. And as an organization, we came together because the history of African Americans and Cape Verdeans, West Indians, and Native Americans was not reflected anywhere in the city. Our history was not being saved. Our history was not being told. And with partnerships like Whale, we were able to do things, and I'll talk a little bit about those things. But my entry into historic preservation was working with Tony Souza, one of the past directors of Whale 25 years ago, and saving the Sergeant Carney House and also saving the Nathan and Polly Johnson House, which was slated for demolition. Just think about it. One of the most important houses in the city that tells the story of the fight for anti-slavery, that was the home of Frederick Douglass, was slated for demolition. And Whale helped the Historical Society save that. Whale has been a really important partner in the city of New Bedford for 62 years. 62 years, Whale has been working to restore buildings, retrofit them, help homeowners decide what kind of work they could actually do and what work they could actually afford to do to save historic homes and their homes. Whale has also worked a lot with the different communities in the city. And at different times, Whale has been the leader in community organized charrettes to talk about how the city should move forward in terms of planning. Some of the interesting charrettes that I've been to is a charrette actually to plan AHA, which was a long time ago. But it was bringing community partners together to talk about how the city should move forward, how grassroots organizations can work together to make sure that the city is a welcoming place. The city is a place that we want. All of us are so, well, you know, we love the city. All of us are excited about the work that's going on now in terms of arts and culture, in terms of saving historic spaces, housing development. All of that Whale has helped people to understand the importance of that. And one of the great things about Whale is not a city agency. Whale is a nonprofit organization that is supported by membership, supported by grant money, supported by foundations. But Whale uses its resources to help people make decisions, to learn from some of our mistakes, also to learn from new methods that we might have exchanged or learned about with other nonprofits around the country that are doing what we're doing. There's no reason that some of the buildings in the city can't be repurposed. They don't have to all be torn down. We don't have to be living in a concrete city. We have lovely old wooden buildings that just need some attention and need to be repurposed for the 21st century. And Whale has been the leader in working with neighborhoods and communities to do those things. So I'm excited to work with Whale. One of the big projects that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned is that Whale was one of the leaders in getting the Community Preservation Act for the city of New Bedford. Many of you got your notices this past week from a number of the nonprofit organizations that applied for funds. This week you got your notice that you got money through the Community Preservation Act. It's Whale that organized that. We pulled together a number of nonprofit organizations, recognizing that if we did not go out to our communities and our voters and tell the voters what the benefits of Community Preservation Act would be, they would vote it down. So I worked on that with a number of people, including Terry and some people who actually have moved on to other organizations. Ann Lauro was one of them. The National Park was one of them. And our whole emphasis was helping people understand that the Community Preservation Act would bring in additional funding for us to do a number of projects with housing rehab, historic preservation, also helping places like the Art Museum, which applied for money to look at some of the paintings and to restore some of the paintings that the city owns, but no one's done anything with for years. So this week, with Community Preservation Act Week, is a time to think about how grassroots organizations have come together along with Whale to raise funds to make the city a better place to live and to apply and make sure that we had funding to do some of the kinds of wonderful projects that benefit all of us, like the First Baptist Church, the Ernestina, the Nathan and Polly Johnson House I mentioned earlier. And I know Ben and Terry will go over some of the recent projects that we're doing, but like the Art Museum, the Zeiterion, these places were all saved by grassroots people coming together and organizing and raising money or applying for money from the federal government or the state. And then just in the last couple of years, couple meaning 3 or 4, the Community Preservation Act has also become another tool for people in New Bedford to start restoring and saving homes and businesses and also cultural centers.
And I think next we're going to hear from Ben.
I could just quickly, Teresa, just go through this is, I just wanted to mention these slides were a result of the Social Innovation Forum, and which Whale has been an innovator in the last year, and it's been super helpful to tell our story. But the slides, you know, are meant to show the process that we go through of working with the community on a project, then assembling the financing, and then actually doing the construction and finding the end use. So an important part of our story in the last years has been finding reuses for buildings that really make a revitalization impact for the neighborhoods and for the cultural environment. So that's just a brief brief, but we were so happy to be an innovator this past year, and a lot of the marketing you're seeing coming out of our organization is through that program. So if anyone's here from SIF, thank you so much. It's been great. Okay, your turn, Ben.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm Ben Jones. I actually chair the community committee, and we're really tasked with making sure that we have a robust feedback loop with the community. So we hope this will be the first of many ongoing conversations with the neighborhood, and we look forward to hearing some of your ideas as we move into the Q&A and conversation portion. But we just wanted to show some of the current projects that are underway. You may drive past these and see things going on, and this will give you a good intro to some of what we're doing. One of the current projects is the Cape Verdean Cultural Center and Island Park, and we're actually working with the Cape Verdean Association to convert a former theater into a cultural center. And the adjacent lot you can kind of see in the picture, is going to be a park. And with a mural celebrating Cape Verde. So this is just going to create transformative gateway into the district known as the International Marketplace, with just a really fantastic building that again is something that otherwise might likely have been lost. So we're taking something that would have been gone and making it into something beautiful that enriches the community. Next slide. And one of the upcoming projects as well is the Capitol Theater multi-use project, which is, I just think, a fantastic and innovative use of a building. You probably, if you've been on the Ave, you've probably seen it, but this building is huge and has so much potential. And Whale is going to be working on restoring what used to be a film theater into a mixed-use economic center that will include a resilience hub, a business incubator, office space for nonprofits, as well as affordable housing. Next slide. And we're also working with the LGBTQ Community Center to restore I think it was former home into a community center. It will actually be the only such center in the entire South Coast. That's 68th Street. And, again, taking, property that has largely been abandoned and turning it into really important, impactful uses for the community. Yeah, and I'm sorry, and just the final slide for some of the current projects that we have underway, and Terry's going to go into some additional ones as well, is we're in the process of working on restoring Hillman Firehouse into 8 affordable apartments. So you're preserving some of this really beautiful, iconic architecture, and helping, it's also a great environmental solution as well, rather than rebuilding, taking some of this great architecture and making it into something that's going to be impactful in the community. And I think Terry's up now.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to thank Ben and Lee for joining in this and their participation in this community outreach effort and all your knowledge that you bring to the process. Thanks so much. So I'm going to talk about the abandoned housing initiative under the Attorney General's office, and it's also called the Receiver Program, and it's a collaboration of the Attorney General's office and the city of New Bedford and all its departments, with the goal of ensuring safe neighborhoods through the reduction of abandoned buildings to create new homeownership and affordable housing opportunities. And I must say that I've I've worked on this program in other cities, and I find the city of New Bedford and the Attorney General's office and all the city departments, it's just a really well-run machine and totally collaborative. And it's been really great to be a part of the process. And hopefully post-COVID, it'll get ramped back up again. And unfortunately, the 2007-2008 housing crisis disproportionately had a negative impact on low to moderate income neighborhoods like the South End, where a lot of our receiver properties are. And this resulted with a high number of foreclosures due to predatory lending. Many homes lay vacant for years as a result of the foreclosures such as 305, 307, which Rachel will be talking about. And so the statewide receivership program, and I know Steve Marshalek's on here, so he can correct me if I'm not saying anything that's accurate during Q&A. Steve runs the New Bedford, the regional receivership program, and does a great job. The program was created to improve vacant residential properties, many as a result of the 2008 housing crisis, that are in poor condition. And it creates first-time home buyer opportunities and affordable housing, such as the projects that I'll be showing you and that are on the screen right now. And these new housing opportunities have provided equity investment for new homeowners, instilling community pride in the historic South End and the other neighborhoods at which the projects are completed. So as part of the program, Whale is a receiver and was appointed by the Housing Court to repair and restore vacant homes and turn them back to new homeowners or provide other affordable housing opportunities. So we come in well after the foreclosure has occurred, years and years after, and the homes really, the ones that Whale takes on are all historic, are all in really bad condition. These are all look beautiful because they're completed, but they require heavy investment. And so next slide. So the first receiver program, project that I was involved in was Howland House. And as you can see, this was a fire damaged building and had to be completely, the parapets and chimneys had to be completely rebuilt. The whole thing was gutted. It was a big project. And now it is 7 units, 5 affordable apartments and 2 market rates. And it's totally restored and leased out and home to 7 families. Next slide. And that's in the South End, in the neighborhood where 318 Pleasant Street and 307 Pleasant Street is. This is 149 Allen Street. This was completed 1.5 years ago. It's a stunning historic building that sits up on a hill. It's in the South End near Dartmouth Street. And there were 20 cats living in here. Alone. And the whole thing was just in really, really bad condition. It was a complete restoration, new roof. Actually, the wooden clapboards were able to be saved for the most part. And the trim was taken off and restored and put back on. We did need to take off the porch. It's got a beautiful portico now. And it is home to a first-time homebuyer family that you see up top, and they're raising their daughter there. It has a huge yard. So it's just a really nice end story. Next slide. 318 Pleasant Street was another, it's right next to Howland House. It's a receiver property that was a substantial restoration. Buddy Andrade and his team worked on this project in the beginning and took out 12 dumpsters worth of stuff from the inside. There was a huge hole in the roof. There was about 100 pigeons living in the attic that had to be relocated. And now it is a 2-family. All these projects are 2 families, and they make great first-time home buyer projects because the owner, who you see up top with a single mom with 2 young children, has rental income to support her mortgage. So she lives in one of the units and rents out the other one. Catherine Duff, Studio to Sustain, is the architect on this project and does a lot of or most of our receiver projects, and their office just does such a great job with restoring these. So thank you, Catherine and Sherry. Next slide. And then we also do partnerships on these projects, and this is the Veterans Transition House staff. That's the executive director, Jim Reed, and they actually own the property and were the receiver, and Whale was the developer. So this is now 18 units of transitional housing. This was also filled with junk. There were squatters in there. It was all these buildings were going to be demolished. So the revitalizing them and restoring them bring history back to the neighborhood. This was a Cape Verdean whaleman's house originally, 18. Rachel, what is it, 1830?
I believe it's 1830s, yeah.
Yeah, 1830. So now it's, bringing life to that neighborhood. Next slide. And finally, 307 Pleasant Street, which Rachel's going to take it from here.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight. We really look forward to hearing your input and ideas. So the work that Whale has been doing at 305, 307 Pleasant is under the Massachusetts AG's receivership program. So we were appointed receiver in 2016, and we've been, slowly chipping away at working on the house, which we anticipate will be finished late this spring. So we started work on the outside of the house. We re-roofed it with a rubber slate material, which is super durable and long lasting, in addition to just being really, really beautiful. And we removed the aluminum siding and restored the original wooden clapboards. And we also installed new energy efficient windows. Next slide, please. So on the interior, we're repairing all of the plasterwork, and we'll be finishing the wood floors. Next slide, please. And we also rearranged some of both floors to fit in 2 full baths plus laundry in each unit. And then we also replaced all of the electrical and plumbing systems. We've installed energy efficient boilers and tankless water heaters, and we've insulated the house with dense pack insulation. Next slide, please. So our goal with this project is not only to preserve an old building and contribute to the historical nature of the neighborhood, but also to create quality energy efficient housing, as well as homeownership and equity building opportunities for the community. So once the property is all finished, we'll be working on a strategy to market the property to attract new Bedford residents, with the goal of selling it to a new Bedford resident. And if we can sell it to a South End resident, all the better. So we would love your input on this project, as well as any other input you might have about our organization and the work we do, or other projects you might like to see us do. So with that, I will turn it back over to Teresa.
I just had one additional thank you, or two additional thank yous. These projects couldn't happen without both Community Preservation Act. So thanks to the city and to the CPC for investing in these projects, because they are neighborhood changing. And then also to Pat Sullivan's office, the mayor's office, for their contribution of the home funds, which provide the funds to enable these first-time homebuyer projects. And so that both the CPC and the city really support this effort, and also to our community bank, Bristol County Savings Bank, who is the construction lender and a lot of times does the first-time homebuyer mortgages for these projects, and their support of Whale and its initiatives is so much appreciated. So those are just some thank yous I forgot about. And also thank you to the board of directors of Whale, many who are on tonight, for their support of the program.
Awesome. Thank you to all the speakers. Here's some contact information. You're welcome to, if you think of a question later on, please email Terry, check out our website, give us a call, or you can mail us a donation or go on our website if you'd like to support us if you aren't already a member. So we have our Q&A now. So there are two different ways that you can ask a question. You can submit it through the chat box and send all your questions there, or you can raise your hand using the raise your hand feature. And you use that by clicking on the participant button at the bottom of your screen. List of names will come up, and underneath that you should see a little hand icon, and you click on that, and that indicates to us you have a question. So as I mentioned before, if you have a lot of questions, would like to ask them not through the chat box, please just stick to one or two until we hear from majority of people, and then you can ask as many questions as your heart desires. So now we'll switch to the Q&A. I'll stop sharing and bring on any questions, concerns, comments, ideas you have for us.
Oh, I think Eugene and Marcia, would you like to?
Hi, we've been the very grateful recipients of two houses on our street, the 307 and 305, as well as 318. We also have a cat. But I was wondering how this is all going to work in terms of, I was pleased to hear that you're going to see if you can get a resident to buy one of the residents on the street, and marketing that to the residents might be harder, so that they get the word out. But I was also, the house next door to me, a very historic house, what's the number, has been bought by a corporation, the Newberry Group, and they're evicting everybody. And I was wondering if there's anything's in place to make them keep the historic nature of at least the outside of the building, or whether free market takes over from here on. I think this particular group has bought two houses on the street, but this one is in very good shape and is particularly nice. Anyway,
Yeah, I didn't know about that. So part of this is, you know, I think there needs to be more of a watching eye on investor opportunities. And as the rail comes into the city, there's going to be more investors buying up properties. And oftentimes, and this happens a lot on Purchase Street, which is the street down from Pleasant Street, investors come in, they don't respect the historic quality of the house, they vinyl side it, they chop up the house into more units than there should be and take out the historic pieces. So we, as part of our ongoing community outreach, and we will be hiring a community outreach coordinator to help us with this, is how do we work with the city, the Attorney General's office, and just to kind of, and neighborhood residents to try and identify houses for sale and how we can prevent investor opportunities, which is not going to be easy, but I think it's super important because it's going to happen more. And the receivership program and the city's home funds can be used, and the CPA funds can be used as tools in our toolbox to help us to save these properties and keep investment opportunities for the residents of New Bedford, not for Boston investors who want to make money from the properties. So we'll be in touch with you guys because I know that you're active in the neighborhood, and as we move forward with this effort with neighborhood planning, which we're really trying to step up on.
Wonderful, thank you.
We had a question in the chat box. What prompted Whale to have this community discussion? So, Terry,
I could take that one, and Rachel can chime in. So I'm sure, well, it's an effort to do better neighborhood planning overall and to get more input, but it kind of stemmed from, it was probably in June, the with the 305, 307 and the protest that happened, and just it kind of showed to us that our work does revitalize neighborhoods, but there's not a good understanding of the program and what it does, and that we need to do better community outreach, and that neighborhood planning is part of this neighborhood revitalization program. And maybe we haven't been doing enough of that because we're too busy restoring the properties, but that's no excuse, and we really need to ramp that up, which we will be doing. And Ben's committee, the community committee, is going to be assisting with that. And we have Lee Blake, who's on that committee, and Pat Thornton's on that committee on this call. So it's really it's really going to be an effort on our part over the next year. Does that answer your question? I don't know who asked it.
I think that was a good response. Yes, Anastasia said yes, it did. The next question is from Dawn. I see you have your hand raised.
Hi, everyone. And actually, Terry, my question is kind of related to that. I don't know if you follow Frank Vagnone. He's like written the Anarchist Guide to the Historic House Museum. And in June, he posted this pretty scathing kind of tome about how preservation is, systemic racism. And so I'm looking at what Whale does and thinking, starting with, Lee Blake and the Nathan and Polly Johnson House, that you have that broader view of being, approaching preservation from a more equitable lens. So I was actually going to ask, how do you do that? And maybe do you have any recommendations for us, citizens of the city to kind of help support more equitable preservation efforts where, you know, you're going into all different kinds of neighborhoods and preserving spaces that were, you know, maybe just held by, not just held by the wealthiest white residents of the city. Does that make sense?
That's a great question, and it's one that we've been trying to tell a better story, and through the Social Innovation Forum, through those model graphics, and just through our projects in general. But there is a community conversation that maybe Teresa could send out with it had 1772 Foundation. Mary Anthony was executive director, and historic preservation is often seen by a lot of people as elitist. And, you know, it's one-offs on buildings that just preserve the building, but don't look at the future use of it. That it's done by, you know, rich folks, and so there is that perception. It is changing, and it requires a lot of education. And while there are historic preservation organizations around the country that, and there's probably, Mary said there's like 6 that are, and Wales proud to be one of them, that are doing groundbreaking work in community revitalization. And one of the things that has kind of increased our ability to do good mission community development work is that we were certified as a community development corporation 6 years ago, and that's my background. So, and all my staff, we look at the board, we look at the projects and the end use, and working with the community, working with a lot of different nonprofits and organizations. And it's, as we say, it's almost more about the people than the buildings. Although we do Catherine will tell you, we do a bang up restoration job and follow the Secretary of Interior standards. But you can see from our uses that, you know, the Co-Creative Center, the Cape Verdean Cultural Center, the LGBTQ community outreach, the Steeple Playhouse, which First Baptist is, and then our first time homebuyer project, they're all impactful reuses of historic buildings. And it's really the community's appreciation of the reuses and the historic cultural restoration of the buildings itself. Does that answer kind of help?
Yeah, no, totally. Thank you.
Great. We have another question in the chat from Nan. Is all your work for home ownership, or do you also do programs with rental, market rate, or affordable?
Rachel, feel free to chime in, but for our housing, we do varied. We do affordable rental, which Howland House you saw the picture of is a great example, and the Co-Creative Center has affordable units. We do first-time home buyer opportunities, which are supported by the city of New Bedford. We completed last year the Veterans Transition House, transitional housing. And then we have also done a market rate house at 148 Hawthorne Street, and the 305, 307 it doesn't need to be a first-time home buyer, has CPA funds in it. Our intent is to keep it affordable, very affordable to the community. And we've been getting input from the community committee and from the realtor and from residents, what would be the best outcome for that property. And I think there was a question about how can we market it to just residents of the South End. We can't, but we can promote that. So we're working with a realtor on how to make that happen.
And yeah, we really do try to do a mix. because having, you know, a mix is healthy for communities. So a mix of market rate housing, a mix of affordable homeownership opportunities, a mix of market rate and affordable apartments. So, you know, just to have a mix for people in the community who are at different stages and have different housing needs.
Catherine, you raised your hand. Catherine Duff.
Sorry, I was hitting the wrong emoji. I was hitting the thumb and not the raise my hand. I had initially raised it because I wanted you to answer Nan's question that she put in the chat room. I wanted to make sure you saw that. But just to piggyback on the affordability issue, it's not just for housing. The Co-Creative Center has little incubator spaces for small businesses, and they have office space, very affordable office space for small businesses, but they also have very small little studio spaces. And then on the first floor, the retail spaces where very small businesses have had an opportunity to really get up and get going at the Co-Creative Center. So it's not just housing, it's also for businesses. And the projects, also piggybacking on what Rachel was saying, it's not just about mixed housing, it's about mixed uses for these buildings. The Capitol Theater project is mixed use. So that includes affordable housing and retail and small business incubator space all in one complex. And research really does support this as a really critical component for revitalizing neighborhoods.
Thanks, Catherine.
So I'd like to weigh in also. I, of course, am the president of the New Bedford Historical Society, and my interest is to have a city that has an inclusive neighborhood, inclusive history, that all people that worked very hard to build this city, all the different ethnic groups, feel that they're a part of this city. So when we're working with Whale on developing property or saving property, we're thinking about an inclusive way of working and an inclusive way of involving city organizations and ethnic groups to propel a narrative that says inclusive is important. And I think that when Don Salerno was talking about, you know, the elitist, at one point in time, historic preservation was about taking care of one house by one group of people. But we really, as Whale and as some of the historic organizations here, we're looking about making the city a better place to live by being inclusive. And that means working with the Veterans Transition House, making sure veterans have a place, making sure homeless people have a place, which is what the LGBTQ Center used to be. Sister Rose's house was for a homeless shelter, and now it'll be a cultural center for another group of people. But it's about looking at the needs of the community and bringing those needs together around historic preservation, and also using buildings that have good bones that should not be destroyed. So I think that's an important part. And I do know about the Arnakist House Museum book, which I bought not too long ago. I'll have to read Rick's essay. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
I just want to, when Lee said good bones, a big part of this, especially the Neighborhood Revitalization Program, is going into these buildings that look like they should be demolished and analyzing whether they can be saved or not. And Catherine is really good at that. And we have some board members, especially Carl Silva, who's a union carpenter, that walks through the buildings. And so the most important piece of that is actually going to the basement. And typically that the big case of that is Hillman Firehouse, and Catherine could talk about, but you think that building should come down, and then you go in the basement and it's like a battleship. I mean, the thing's not coming down for a while. And then Catherine and Carl also look at the joists and the framing, and so if it's got, as Lee Blake said, good bones, there's ways we can restore this. Does it cost a lot of money? Do we lose money on projects? Yes, we do. Some we break even, not a lot we make money on, but it requires huge investment, but the payoff for the neighborhoods is just enormous. And the outpouring of the neighborhood for the Hillman Firehouse, you wouldn't think that people would have that identify with that building that much, but it's been in that community forever. There's a lot of memories that take place there. It's an object, but it's part of the community, and people really care about it. Just a quick example: First Baptist Church. People, we've had open houses and people have come and they've said, I was married in this church 30 years ago, or, my grandchild was baptized here, or I knew a pastor here. There's just identify, not with just the historic structure, but with the story of the building. And when you restore them, those stories live on. Might be a different use, but people still have that identity. So to Don's question, I think that's a big part of it too. Making these buildings are more than just bricks and mortar. I wouldn't call them people, but they're members of the community, and they deserve respect. That sounds corny, but doesn't matter.
Awesome. Eugene Gallagher, you have your hand raised.
I'm the talker, sorry.
Okay.
Speaking of the fabric of the community, on the other side of me is a house owned by, I don't know, I think I can call him a slum landlord. He never fixes anything. It's a beautiful building, and it's actually, the people who live there have been there for many years and like living here. And the people on the street always tell me, well, my family lived on the 3rd floor at one point. My family lived on the 2nd floor, and they all hate to see it disintegrating, which it is disintegrating. So the core of my question is, how do we let people stay? These are longtime tenants. How do we have people stay in these houses and yet get them up to code? I don't quite understand how the city doesn't go by and notice things that are boarded up, and I don't know.
I think that
It's a beautiful building.
it's kind of a continuation of the other issue in that of there's not a good. We will be calling you, Rachel and I, to hear about the properties that you know about, and to start to develop a list and to work with the city and the Attorney General's office. There is ways to invest in a property, relocate some tenants, and then put them back into the unit. It's not easy to do, but I've done that before. It makes it much more difficult. But I think that the real issue is saving these properties from investors before the investors buy them. So that's going to require a knowledge base of when these properties are for sale. And with the housing being at such a critical, I mean, houses are selling really fast, so that the amount of time they're on the market, it's hard to actually get in there and see, because we need to find out, we need to do some due diligence, because we would spend money on the property.
I'm talking about my street, but I think it's repeated on all streets down here.
Yes, so we will be we will be in contact with the Gallaghers, and also maybe you can help us spearhead a neighborhood group. I have talked to some community leaders, such as Buddy Andrade and Dina from Rep Cabral's office, and to put together a group, to a neighborhood group to start to do neighborhood planning and start to identify properties that need to be saved. So we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Great. Catherine, you had your hand raised.
No, I think that was from before. Do I hit it again to unraise it? Oh,
Oh.
lower hand. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
As much time as I spend on Zoom, you would think I would know all of these protocols.
Yeah. There's always tech issues.
Well, and you know, I would just like to say thank you, Marcia and Eugene, for I mean, you're awesome community members, and this is what we need. We would really like for the community to get involved and pay attention to what's happening around them, and let us know. You know, we've been trying to do, we call them neighborhood walks, and so we'll go to different areas of the city, the staff, and we'll take a walk around and look at see if there are any potential projects or any potential properties that might need some help, but our staff is only 4 people. So, you know, the more eyes, the better. And so, you know, if you see something in your neighborhoods, reach out to us, reach out to the city. And yeah, that would be really great. And thank you for being so involved in your neighborhood.
One more thank you on supporting this program, but I see Rihanna Grace is on from Island Foundation, and Denise and Island Foundation, and now Rihanna is a huge supporter of this program and of Whale, and not just in Denise was actually on a community conversation recently, but not just in giving contributions, but actually collaborating on these projects. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Island Foundation for their support.
There was a question in the chat box. Any idea why our Ward 4 councilors, past and present, aren't more supportive of the Whale efforts on Pleasant Street?
I can just say again, I think it's and maybe Steve can chime in, and I see that Liza's on here too, but there needs to be a better understanding of the receivership program and good work that it does, and it's a complicated process, and can be misunderstood, and that's not the fault of the city councilors or residents. Because once the process is understood and what a good job it does to restore these vacant homes, you know, I think that people get the program. So, you know, it's an education, it's community outreach, and one of the reasons why we're doing this this session.
And I think these conversations are going to continue on, you know, as we hire a community outreach person. And, you know, this is just the first type of big outreach that hopefully they'll be in person in future, but these types of conversations are going to continue through these types of events, but also just one-on-one with people. I think that's super important, and hopefully we'll be able to continue our neighborhood walks, because that's really how we've been able to get to know the community. We've, you know, saw people on the street, gave them our cards, shared a little bit more information about the projects. And I think that's going to really help to just continue the conversation. Pat, I see your hand is raised. Oh, you have to unmute. Oh, Pat, you're muted.
There, how's
There you
that?
go.
That's good, okay. Well, I wanted to add to this. Actually, I'm really happy to see so many people here tonight. And also, I wanted to add that Whale has just brought together this community committee about a year ago, is it a year and a half ago, to focus on this communications with neighborhoods, with the community, with interested people. So we're open to hearing a lot of ideas, and we're just forming our own ideas, and we realized that we needed to have better outreach everywhere. So anyway, we can use your help with and your ideas most definitely. And then one question I had is, I see all these names, and I know I'm a resident of New Bedford, moved here from Boston many years ago with my children, and I'm wondering, like, what is everybody interested in? Everybody's interested in coming to this, and I'm wondering what some of the reasons and some of the things you wanted to learn or communicate to us tonight.
Pat, this is Peter Muse. I can tell you, I have personally and professionally supported Whale, but really from Terry, but a bit from afar, Terry. To be honest with you, but the work, I've watched some of the work being done, and I was extremely bothered by what I would consider to be the negative press on the home that you renovated through the Attorney General's office. And I was very bothered by that because of what I would consider to be folks making comments that are uneducated to the process, commenting first before they find out the details. That bothers me a lot. And so that kind of spurred me on to finding out a little bit more and of what it is. And then this is to me, this was a fantastic opportunity to be able to listen a little bit more. So I give Terry and her team great credit for allowing this, just allowing us to be able to do it in this COVID-19 world, to be educated. This is great. I thank you very kindly. So I'm not sure I had a lot of high expectations, but I know I don't know a lot, and I'm more than willing to learn and take the opportunity. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you, Peter.
Pat, good to see you again too.
Thank you, Peter, for all your support. You're one of our biggest supporters, and you take the time to come to the office, and so I'm glad that you're on this call. It shows that you really care about your community and the work that's being done. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Well, and I would just like to chime in. You know, I think that we've really viewed what happened last year with the protests at 305, 307, and really taken it as a learning opportunity. You know, I think it really showed us that we need to do a better job of education and community outreach, and you know, that's something that we are going to take very seriously, and hopefully do more of moving forward.
I think a key measure of our success is more parades, less protests.
Ben, you always have the right words.
I didn't hear too many people talk about like any specific projects that, or, you know, new things they would love to see in New Bedford. And one thing that I personally would love to see in New Bedford is a homeless shelter. I think that is really needed. I hope Whale be able to take that on sometime. We have lots of projects, and but I hope that I can see that in New Bedford sometime soon. Veterans Transitional Housing in 1060, and with the Veterans Transition House, that's really helping the homeless community and the veteran community, because they really coincide and intersect. But I would love to see a homeless shelter in New Bedford sometime in the future. That's just a project that I would really love to see.
I will say from my community involvement, your aspirations are fantastic. Stay tuned. There's a few of us that have been working on this for about 2 years. I didn't make the connection. So more the merrier. The more the merrier on a problem that just doesn't go away, right? Homelessness doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It's evolving. We're still seeing on average over 40 people a night that we're putting into the winter shelter. And you mentioned the old Sister Rose house, right? That's not adequate for 2021. And even the Sister Rose shelter is wonderful, but not adequate. So there is ways of doing things, and love to follow up that comment at some point in time.
Yeah, Peter, please contact Rachel and me. So Teresa, Rachel and I have been talking about that exact thing.
Okay, good.
The project. So, but it's gonna require partnerships.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, no doubt about it.
It's a complicated thing to do correctly, and we love to partner. So, and a lot of these historic homes would make beautiful homeless transitional housing. And our work with the Veterans Transition House did teach us a lot, and just about how careful and thoughtful the design of these projects need to be to give pride to the people who are transitioning from homelessness to permanent housing, and and the supportive services that are required. So it's super interesting, and I think the need's going to be even more pressing post-COVID, with a lot of people getting evicted, and a lot of foreclosures happening, and unemployment. So the problem's just going to increase, and hopefully people are going to respond to it. So we'll be contacting you, Peter. Thank you.
Yeah, Terry, I think you have my contact information. Reach out. We'll set up a conversation. I'll fill you in on some history, and let's see where we can. It's all about taking it forward. It's not what happened in the past. It's all about taking it forward. So
yep.
Love to have the conversation.
I actually have a couple buildings that might work. So
good.
We have a question. Matthew, you have your hand raised, and we'd love to hear your question.
Right, thank you. And thanks for a really informative presentation. I have a couple of questions, actually. One is kind of a nuts and bolts question, and one is much more philosophical. I'm from Boston. I've been involved in historic preservation in Boston for a long time, with an organization that's sort of your first cousin in Boston, called Historic Boston. We struggle with a lot of the same issues you do. The nuts and bolts question is just whether you've used historic tax credits or thought about how they might help some of the stuff you're doing. And then maybe the more philosophical question is, your comment, we've started to spend a little time in Bedford because a couple of friends of ours have moved there, and we've just been spending more time there. And I'm just really struck by, the good bones that somebody mentioned earlier. And I'm just, this question of welcoming new residents without displacing old residents, is there a way to do that, to reconcile them and not have the fact that new people want to move to New Bedford or invest in New Bedford be perceived as a negative thing? I'm just wondering if you it's something we think about at Historic Boston because sometimes our projects have the effect of kind of welcoming new people to the neighborhoods we do them in. And it's just trying to find a way to see that as something that everybody benefits from rather than a source of friction or opposition is a challenge we think about. And I just wonder whether you've thought much about that or have any strategies you want to share about that.
That's a great question, and it's two-pronged. I'm going to let Rachel take the historic tax credits because she's the one who does most of the applications, and so she can say the volumes of applications we submit for historic tax credits. But on the outside resident investment in New Bedford, I agree with you 100%. I mean, there's a huge difference between investor opportunity and not paying respect to the historic properties and cutting up units. And then, like, a great example of this is 148 Hawthorne, and it was sold, and Diana Henry's on, who's our board president, sold to a couple from Boston who bought the building for its historic integrity, and they needed to do added restoration work, and they're just doing a great job. So it's two men from Boston who are pouring their heart and soul into that building, and it looks great. So that's the kind of investment, and they want to be involved in the community. That is absolutely 100% great. Pat said she's from Boston, and she kind of long time ago bought a historic property from Whale and invested in it and stayed. And there are a lot of great residents that are coming in because it is a wonderful community, and the neighborhoods are stunning. So I think that's the difference that we're talking about. And I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. So Rachel, do you want to talk about historic tax credits?
Sure. So historic tax credits are a big part of multiple projects that we're working on, and really a lot of these projects we just wouldn't be able to do without historic tax credits. And we also use other forms of funding as well. But the Hillman Street Firehouse is using historic tax credits. The Strand Theater project for the Cape Verdean Cultural Center, the Capitol Theater project for the CEDC, the Community Economic Development Center. So yes, we do a lot of HTC applications, and yeah, they make these projects possible.
I think that in our the last round, we submitted 7, correct, Rachel? Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And let me guess, you get a partial allocation and then you have to submit again, and you kind of you go again and again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
the Massachusetts system is weird.
Yeah, and Matthew, I'd love to meet you sometime. Kathy Cottaderis is like she's just amazing, and I think there are a lot of similarities between Historic Boston Inc. and Whale. I look at HBI's website a lot and look at the projects they're doing, and it comes from the same mission-driven community development world. And they're just awesome projects and so creative and innovative. So good for you for being involved with that organization.
Thank you. Next time we come down and visit, I will look you up, Terry.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. Brandon Cabral. Oh, Matthew, do you have one other thing to say? Sorry.
No, I just want to thank you for the thoughtful answers to my questions. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Sorry about that. Brandon, you have your hand raised. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me and doing this presentation. It was very, very informative. And just to, answer Patricia's comment or question, I should say, what brought me here is sort of, I wanted to be more informed on Whale. I had noticed the protests last year. I had asked a few questions to people I've known who work within the infrastructure of the city, and they didn't really have an answer for me as to what Whale was and what they do. So when I saw that you guys were having this presentation today in this community outreach, I said I would love to be there and kind of get some information. So I'm glad I came because it was very informative. And to kind of, you know, answer it follow up with Matthew's question, the dynamic of trying to keep the culture and the community together in New Bedford, historically, the historic culture who made these communities is a very difficult thing. And as a member of the public, not a member of any of these boards or any of these groups, I can say people are very fearful of losing their culture. And I think that's where a lot of the backlash comes. So I think more outreach, like Terry had said, more work within the community, maybe more of those walkabouts, maybe more social media posts and sharing about these groups and these presentations that you're doing can be very beneficial and very helpful. I like what Lee said, you know, as far as, you know, the vast majority of different cultures that have built the city and how we have to work together to preserve those things and those cultures is very important to someone like myself, who's a lifelong resident of the city and now a homeowner myself. So I'm very, very much invested in New Bedford, and I will be for the rest of my life. So I just appreciate you guys, you know, being here. I would love to be at more meetings. I do have some concerns after listening to what everyone said as far as the investments and the investment groups. And it's kind of funny because I spoke to Brandon Roderick. I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with who that is. He's the owner of the Baker downtown, which I'm sure some of you have frequented because it's amazingly delicious stuff there. Yeah. And he actually shared something on social media today where he was fearful of these investment groups who invest in restaurants, taking away from the small mom and pop businesses downtown like himself. So again, it's just something that New Bedford residents are wary of, you know, especially people who have been here forever. You know, we don't want to see our city just go to big business from other towns and other cities who may, you know, think it's a beautiful place and have a lot of potential financially for them. It's home for us. It's not just a financial opportunity for us. It's our blood, sweat, and tears. So I would just ask you guys to take that in consideration with all the decisions you make, and going any further. And that's really it. I just appreciate you guys doing this, and I hope you guys do it again. Thank you.
That was really well put, Brandon. Thanks for sharing that. And can we reach out to you because we'd like to involve you in the community outreach that we're doing. Also, if you've invested in the city and you're a New Bedford resident, we actually, Lee might be contacting you for a potential board member because you'd be great. So, so we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, and thank you so much for taking the time to come. You know, this kind of input is really what we were looking for. So thanks so much for taking the time and for providing your input.
So I don't see too many more. Oh, Catherine, you have your hand raised. Do you want to say something?
I just had a follow-up on Matthew and Brendan's comments that in the architecture community, there's been a bit of research and a lot of focus recently on what we call in urban design, building equitable cities and how you do redevelopment in an equitable manner. And a lot of the focus is on getting input with the community before the process really gets rolling, before the funding gets in place, because what we've discovered is that once a project is funded and starts construction, at that point, it's almost exclusive. It's too late to seek the community input. So there's just been a lot of effort and a lot of research being focused in the urban design and architectural world right now on equitable redevelopments and focused on urban centers and how we can move that process of getting the community involved earlier in the design decision-making process as opposed to community involvement after the fact, or even once construction starts is almost too late. So thanks for those comments, and more to come. It's a dynamic, fluid process and changing constantly, and no process is perfect. And I think Whale loves to look at their work and learn from the mistakes and take that knowledge into the next project. So I would say what Whale's doing is really aligned with the broader community, really focused on this issue of how do we build equitable cities.
Awesome. Thanks, Catherine. So we're coming up on a little, almost an hour and a half soon. And this has been such a great conversation, and we'd love to hear, one or two more questions or comments if everyone has before we end this community conversation.
Well, and if I could just jump in and kind of respond to what Brandon was talking about, two of our projects in the North End are the Strand Theater with the Cape Verdean Association, excuse me, and they're working on, they've been working on for a very, very long time to create the first Cape Verdean Cultural Center in the South Coast area. And, they'll be providing education opportunities, both English as a second language, as well as Creole language classes, music classes to kind of, both celebrate and keep the Cape Verdean culture alive in New Bedford. And then another project that we're working on with the CEDC is the Capitol Theater Project. And the CEDC works a lot with the immigrant community in the North End, and the North End has always had a very, very rich immigrant community. It's different immigrant groups, but very, very important, the immigrant culture. And so they will, some of the tenants that we've already identified for that building reuse is an immigration lawyer. The CEDC will have their offices there. And then kind of like Catherine was saying, we'll have some business incubator space for small local businesses in the North End, textile maker space and food maker space. And so, this is something that we're trying to take very seriously to keep these cultures and traditions in their communities, in their neighborhoods, and in the city.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Rachel. I think that was important to help people understand a little bit more the context of some of the work that Will's doing in the North End. And it's great, over the years, we've really been able to expand. Will has historically been known to be more in the downtown area, and I think it's important that we spread our wings, because downtown has historically been known to get most of a lot of the funding in the city, and I think it's important that more people and private public funding is able to be spread out, and I think that's starting with CPA and with our help and other nonprofits.
I just wanted to do another thank you. I see that, I don't know how long you've been on the Zoom, Buddy, but Buddy Andrade has been a huge supporter of our Neighborhood Revitalization Program, and with his workforce training efforts, and his group of young men have helped to restore quite a few buildings for us, and it's very difficult work, and I don't know if any young women have joined you, Buddy, but I think it's mostly young men. All they just get we bring them a pizza and chips and soda for lunch, and they work all day. So I just wanted to thank Buddy and his crew for all their work with Whale.
So, sorry I'm late, but I've been watching the news, having dinner. I shut my computer up around 4:30, 5 o'clock and forgot. So I apologize. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. And I tried to find a picture of you and your crew. I need
We
to
got a whole bunch. We got a whole bunch.
You need to send me some because I'm so bad at taking pictures, and the ones I sent to Teresa were such bad quality.
We
Oh, we
couldn't
got
use
pictures.
them. I was like, this buddy would not approve.
As a matter of fact, we have a nice one that we sent to Lee. Hi, Lee, regarding the Abolition Road Park site that we have cleaned up for many years. Lee, and we thank Lee for all the help she's given us to keep our young people going. You know, I'm between a rock and a hard place here. I'm trying to stay on topic. I know what your topic is. It's basically revitalization of the neighborhood, housing, rehab, and things of that nature. But the key piece that you started off with about jobs, you know, I just have to get right back to that. And there's going to be some negativity coming out in regards to what we feel and what the Workforce Investment Board feels are the priorities for our community and our neighborhoods. And when we understand and we support offshore wind, we understand and support advanced manufacturing. But if we don't get our men and women, our young folk in the high schools and in vocational schools more involved in the trades, carpentry and plumbing and electrical, roofing and things of that nature, new construction, even green new construction. Revitalization is here to stay, and we've got to get into these neighborhoods and do it. But the problem I have, and I see quite often, is that not enough of those young people who are putting on the hard hats, going doing the carpentry and the electrical work, are coming from those neighborhoods. Okay, that's just not happening. And yes, we do have females in our summer program, but even that has been jeopardized by what the Workforce Investment Board has been doing. We don't even know if we're going to have a program this year, okay, because of the way they're doing what they're doing. So I'm between a rock and a hard place and saying this is so important, and what you've done over the years from Union Street to Allen Street, you know, we've been there with you, Terry, and we loved it and we appreciated it. Our guys got a lot out of it. They got paid $12 an hour. We got a lot of experience in what we did. But there's going to be more to just that. There's going to be as you and I have talked in the past, Terry, there's going to be that thing where, okay, they've done that. Now, what else can they do to bring that into a job, a career, a path that's going to be able to take them? Because you know where most of these boys that came from that we were dealing with, you know, some of your at-risk boys, and but what potential? And we're not harnessing that potential. And this is a program that's neighborhood-based. There's a lot of housing from downtown all the way down to the south end that could utilize it, the west end, north end. And so there's a market there that we can train our folk with, our young people, because the unions will take them, okay, if they go and apply, but who's getting them involved? Even think about that. You know, where is the putting it into their mind that I can be a good carpenter, I can design buildings, you know, I can do landscaping, I can do masonry, roofing, all that stuff, you know. So that's where I'm at with this. You know, we need new housing, and there's another big program coming up with de-letting. And one of the issues that I'm talking about in this community, in this region, go look at it. We don't have de-letters. We don't have asbestos workers. Okay, those environmental pieces must be included in what we're talking about, because we're not just talking about revitalizing housing. It's going to be healthy housing. Okay, even in the green stuff, it has to be healthy green. Weatherization, healthy weatherization, because you can tighten them up, but is it healthy after we do it? I probably took up too much time. I'm sorry for coming in late, but you know, Terry, we'll talk.
Yeah, and it's something that is important to us too, the workforce training aspect, and is something that's sorely needed in the neighborhood revitalization program. So yes, and we need to carve out time to be able to work with you and bring that forward, because there's you have a lot of great ideas, and we have some mentorship ideas in the trades, and it would just be a total positive for the community. As for the environmental sustainability of our projects, that's a huge piece of how we approach them, and it's a specialty of Studio to Sustain. We do, we use all as many recycled materials as possible. We do energy efficiency. We look at this from a real sustainable approach to how to restore these houses. And as Catherine would say, you can even eat the flooring that we use in a lot of cases. So that is a big element, and we didn't talk about that. And Catherine could talk for probably 2 hours about it, but it's a whole nother topic. So, and it's an important one, but I'll be in touch, Buddy, and we have to carve out the time to be able to work together on workforce training.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, this has been, it's coming up on 7:30, so we don't want to make this too long. But thank you so much to everyone who joined and gave us some comments, concerns, and just your questions were really important. This is also has been recorded, and we're going to put it on our YouTube and share it on our social media, our e-news. And please share this with anyone who wasn't able to come tonight. And also reach out to us if you have any questions that come up later on that weren't answered tonight. And if anyone isn't a member and you would like to be a member, go on our website or email me, and I'll be able to answer how to become a member. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your evening. Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
Teresa. Thanks, everybody.